What's going on, guys? I'm Tyler, and because it's Earth Day, I decided to do something a little bit different with these Disney reviews and tell you that one of the latest Disneynature films, Dolphin Reef, is no perfect movie. And it takes place in the Polynesian islands where a 3-year-old bottlenose dolphin named Echo is learning how to fend for himself in the ocean without having to rely on his mother all the time. And all the while, the movie also focuses on some other sea creatures that Echo comes across, like a humpback whale and her calf who are being chased by orcas, or this one coral reef where I hope I get this right anyways, a peacock mantis shrimp is constantly and obsessively reconstructing his home made of coral, which keeps getting messed up by other fish. I really haven't seen that many Disney nature documentaries. As a kid, I was a big fan of Animal Planet and The Crocodile Hunter. In fact, somewhere in this basement, I have a DVD of Collision Course. That was a movie I really watched a lot as a kid. And I went into this movie just really expecting beautiful cinematography of the ocean and some facts about dolphins that I never really knew before. And I definitely got those things. But what I was surprised by was how the directors managed to take their footage and edit it together in a way that gave the movie this sense of continuity and gave these sea animals a 3-act structure over how they come of age, how they learn to fend for themselves. And for some people, that might be a problem because since we weren't there along with the directors over this journey, we don't know for a fact whether or not this was filmed chronologically. Personally, I wouldn't believe it, and some people are going to say that because we don't know for sure, it'll just feel like we're being manipulated as an audience because they're taking real life animals and trying to present it as a story with a narrative. But the thing that really surprised me was just how they managed to use real life facts about the ocean to correlate the lives of sea animals with the lives of human beings. And they managed to do that by having the message be about community, because that's the interesting thing about this section of the ocean. The animals, whether you could argue whether it's because of natural selection or because of evolution, they unintentionally operate in a way where every animal does their own part to ensure the survival of another species without having to be their next meal. For example, they show this very small species of fish that feed off of like bits and mold that other sea creatures carry with them that makes them dirty, even though they're constantly surrounded by water 24/7. And in a weird way, these larger groups of fish and even sea turtles actually form a lineup on this one side of the ocean floor for these fish to pick at their skin and even pick inside their mouths. The narrator, Natalie Portman, who we'll get to later, even says there's an unofficial rule: don't eat these fish, because once they go into their mouth, they are going to swim right back out once they're done. And it was insane just how you could see these fish interacting with larger or smaller groups and rely on them not just for food. In fact, there was one point where turtles were like fighting with each other because they were cutting in line. Just imagine seeing that, like, as you're going about your day with normal people, let alone sea turtles. But even though it's Disney, this documentary doesn't shy away from the fact that it literally is a shark eats shark world, and that there are groups of animals that don't really last very long, especially anyone that's prey to a cuttlefish, which does not live up to the name. If anything, it's a lot more like Kaa from the Jungle Book. He hypnotizes you, he will eat your ass alive. And the movie also shows us through the credits how the filmmakers managed to capture such beautiful imagery of the oceans and the Polynesian islands. It goes without saying that they would use like scuba divers to film everything handheld underneath the water, and of course have a bunch of helicopter, boat, or a jet ski at one point. That was a legitimate surprise. What I didn't realize about underwater photography up until now was just how intricate and complicated it kind of is just to get a steady shot, because the scuba divers have a pulley system connected to the camera, and the camera is rigged with a fan that makes everything look completely stable and steady. Every shot underneath the water has the sense of motion. It never feels like handheld cam. In fact, at one point on the bottom of the ocean floor, in the really darker parts of the ocean floor, they had tripods that they moved around with their pulley systems. And it's just like, how in the hell did you get that down there? How long did it take to bring those with you? I couldn't imagine scuba divers bringing tripods and camera dollies with them, and I can only imagine how stressful that must have been to swim down there with all that equipment, but the effort really goes to show. This is such a well-filmed documentary, and the editing also has its own cinematic look to it. There are very weird scene transitions where the shot ends on an animal, like a dolphin, then it fades to a different part of the sea, and then that animal fades into the new part of the sea, and you're just like, ooh, oh, whoa, okay. It has a really strange and surreal feel to it, but honestly, I liked it. The only technical problem I really had with the film is that I felt like there was way too much slow motion of the underwater sequences, especially when they focus on the humpback whales, because at normal speed, the movements of humpback whales look slow already, and whenever they breach the surface, every single shot is in slow motion, and I didn't see the purpose in that. Well, seeing a whale breach the surface is an epic shot on its own. There's really no need to enhance it or to fix it, because there was nothing to fix. It was already such a good looking image and such a beautiful thing about nature already, so I didn't really see the purpose of that other than to make the runtime feel a lot longer, because there are a decent amount of slow motion shots that really just make the movie feel a lot longer than it is. And as for a story structure problem, for a movie called Dolphin Reef, the subplots surrounding the mantis shrimp and the whales do kind of overshadow the main story sometimes. And it's not to say that the story with the dolphins isn't fully developed. It is. Kids can definitely identify with this dolphin Echo because he wants to make his mom proud. He does want to fend for himself, but he also wants to have fun all the time, so he gets distracted easily. And then once a really dark and messed up moment happens where he has to fend for himself literally, you do believe that this dolphin is going to learn from his mistakes. So it's very relatable and identifiable, even if you don't know anything about dolphins. It's just sometimes they go for the subplots with the whales to add like increased amounts of tension, or with the mantis shrimp for comic relief, because he's a funny critter to look at up close, and I can totally understand families having a good time with those. It didn't always feel focused structure-wise. And as for Natalie Portman, who narrates the movie, she's mostly soft-spoken throughout the film, but there are moments where she kind of reenacts what the animals are going through by having like this exaggerated voice whenever characters are fighting with each other over food or over a part of the ocean. She has this exaggerated cartoonish reenactments to those, like she's reading a storybook to kids, and in those moments it's effective. There are some times where she sounds a little too serious once things are getting really dark and messed up, but as is, she does exactly what she's supposed to do, and it was a surprisingly good fit to have her as the narrator. So overall, Dolphin Reef isn't always focused when it comes to the story structure, and because you're taking real-life animals and making it seem like there's a story structure to it as opposed to just natural life happening, that could piss some people off, but you know what? I don't really regret watching the movie. So with that said, I'm going to give Dolphin Reef a 3.5 out of 5. Happy Earth Day, everybody. Thank you as always for watching. If you have seen Dolphin Reef or the new Disneynature documentary Elephant, be sure to let me know down below in the comments what you thought of it. Be sure to stay tuned for more Disney reviews, and be sure to like and subscribe. Take care.